Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer, the Guru Urquhart here with Gabe Henderson next to me, my co-host out there in Texas. How's it going, Gabe?
Going good. Getting antsy. It's almost draft time.
Yeah, most definitely, man. We're going to have a lot of NFL draft talk here on this episode. We're going to be breaking down the fantasy relevant NFL draft prospects because we could do a whole hour or two on this NFL draft stuff because I know that's what you want to talk about. But this is a fantasy show, so we're going to keep it fantasy relevant, talk about the top quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And we're going to have a special guest to help us break all that down, former NOLA.com colleague who's now at the Philadelphia Inquirer, Mr. Devin Jackson. We'll be bringing him on here in a few minutes. But before we do that, we got some headlines to go over, Gabe, and I think this first one might trigger you a little bit as a Texans fan. Will Levis now favored to go second overall at Caesars. Kind of an interesting twist there. And speaking of Caesars, our show is presented by them, Caesar Sportsbook. Make sure to head over there to get a risk-free first bet if you haven't already, up to $12.50 back if you don't win. So go check that out over at Caesars. But yeah, Will Levis moving up the odds charts there. Kind of surprising. Most people had C.J. Stroud going second after the Bryce Young train took off as far as him going first. But now it might be flipping. We'll have to see. We'll definitely have to ask Devin what he thinks about these QBs because they're definitely all over the board. And then a trade went down the day Allen Robinson traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the LA Rams, giving up on A-Rob after 1 year. Honestly, can't blame him. He was a total bust last year and might do okay in his new home, but probably won't see a whole lot of work behind Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. And as far as basketball, y'all, NBA playoffs hot and heavy. Game 2 action going down tonight. But as far as tomorrow's action, got a couple of big stars questionable there, and Ja Morant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Going to be interesting to see if they can suit up because both of their teams, the Grizzlies and Bucks, are down 1-0 in those series. And we'll have some NBA DFS talk here in just a few before we get to the draft talk for those that are looking to get in on that. And then for those fantasy baseball enthusiasts out there, the pitcher injuries continue to pile up. Now Jacob deGrom and Corbin Burns day to day. Hopefully nothing too serious there, but just par for the course, it seems, man, with all these pitchers. You draft them early, they put up nice numbers for a while, but they don't seem to last.
The inherent risk always. Taking pitchers early, it's always going to come back to bite you.
Yeah. I mean, not always, because you do have your guys like Garrett Cole, for example. I don't think anyone's griping that drafted Garrett Cole early, but it's a percentage thing. The percentage of Garrett Cole's is very low, where the percentage of, I don't want to call it like a Yordan Alvarez, a dime a dozen, but like, the percentage of good hitters, I'd say, is a lot higher. And hello to there's my dad, Horace. I appreciate my dad always tuning in. And of course, everyone else that tunes in here on Bayou Bets, couldn't do it without y'all. And well, we're the fantasy roundup here today. Of course, speaking of Bayou Bets, shout out to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, which we're streaming on right now. Make sure to subscribe to that if you haven't already. And let's get into this NBA DFS, Gabe, because I know a lot of y'all out there probably looking for something to play right now with, no football. And with MLB, I mean, you got MLB, but it's just the early part of the regular season. Nothing too enticing there. But this NBA action, pretty interesting. We got a 3-game slate here scheduled for tonight. Hawks at Celtics, Knicks at Cavs, Clippers at Suns. And look like there's some pretty good values here. I'm going with Darius Garland as my value because he had a kind of an off game 1. It was basically all Donovan Mitchell in that one, where the Cavs, they need this. This is game 2. It's at home. They really need this game. And they're going to need somebody else to step up besides Mitchell. And I think that somebody will be Garland. He was an all-star this year. He's normally a top scorer. He's been kind of in a slump lately. But I think he bounces back tonight. And I see you got a Nick there, Gabe, and Quentin Grimes.
I do. We double dipped into the same game, funnily enough. I really like Quentin Grimes tonight. You know, Josh Hart, not a huge name, but he's doubtful for the Knicks, so those minutes are going to need to get split up somewhere. I mean, Quentin Grimes is another guy who, like you mentioned with Darius Garland, had a bad night in game one. He had 5 points in his fewest minutes in the last month, and that's also his lowest point total in the last month. But in 3 of his last 5 games, he's tallied 20 plus points. So I like Quentin Grimes to bounce back tonight. I think the Knicks need someone to step up, and I think Quentin Grimes can be that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with the Knicks, sometimes you never really know who's going to step up for them. I mean, you got Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, but neither one of them are alpha scorers per se. You know, where it's like they could always have somebody like Emmanuel Quickly, for example. I had him in fantasy this year for my season-long league, and he was a good producer there down the stretch, especially when Brunson was hurt. Now that Brunson's healthy, it might be a little tougher for guys like him and Grimes to shine. But with Brunson, he's like I said, he's not like an alpha scorer. He's usually a 20 to 25 point per night guy. Or if he's not really shooting a whole lot, he's distributing more. I could see Grimes or Quickly really going off. And yeah, Grimes at 4,700 looks to be pretty nice. And Garland 7,400. You may be thinking, well, that's not a value. It is if you're looking for a point guard, because point guards, they got a lot of pricey point guards out there to where Garland's a lot cheaper than a lot of these ones. You know, like for example, Mitchell, his teammate, who's up there at over 9,000. I know Mitchell's been the hot hand lately, but I'd take the value with Garland at 7,400. Also, Trae Young, really expensive there. I want no part of that. I know Trae Young, when he's on, is really nice, but he's so hit or miss. If he's not on, he's going to sink you.
Yeah, he's really struggled recently.
Yeah, I mean, he did well in the play-in, you know, to get him in, but, you know, you can't count on him, I don't feel like, on a nightly basis. And we see Rabu up in here. What's up, man? Who will be the Saints' #1 pick? That's an interesting one. We'll definitely have more talk on that. My early guess is a defensive lineman. That's what the odds are saying. The offensive line, though, could be an option as well. I'm going to say right now my early lean, if he falls as far as offensive, I think Osiris Torrance from Florida transferred to Florida from UL, my alma mater. And I'm not just saying that because he went to my school. I'm saying that because Osiris Torrance is a beast and would really help the interior of the Saints offensive line. But if he's gone, which a lot of mocks have him being picked before then, I'm thinking Miles Murphy could slide to the Saints, the edge rusher out of Clemson. His stock has seemed to fall here lately, and I think he could be a good fit. But we'll have to ask that one to Devin, too. We'll have him on there in just a couple minutes. And before we get to him, though, answer Rabu's next question. Do the Pels need to unload Zion? I'm going to say they should. I'm done with Zion personally. I'm just tired of the same act with him every year, the same song and dance. I think they should unload him, but they just paid him the max. I don't think there's any way that they do. They're stuck with him. They paid him the max. He made your bed with him. Now you gotta ride it out and hope he can get healthy and play. I mean, I don't know about you, Gabe, but to me, it's just you're stuck.
I mean, I said a few months ago that they should have gotten rid of him. He's a fantastic player when he's on the court, but obviously the problem there is he's never healthy. So I think the Pelicans would really benefit. I mean, we saw how much they struggled without him down the stretch. I think they'd benefit from moving him on for some assets.
Yeah, just what can you get for him at this point, though? Probably not enough for what, David Griffin's going to be asking for the world. But right now, Zion's stock's kind of down. I still think maybe a deal with the Knicks could happen if the Knicks decide, we're not good enough to make a finals run. We're going to break this thing up. Maybe send over Julius Randle and some assets to the Pels. But like I said, I don't see it happening. David Griffin said yesterday that it's probably going to be more minor tweaks as opposed to big swings this offseason. So I think the Pels and Pels fans, you're just going to have to ride it out and hope it turns around. I'm not too optimistic right now, but we'll see. But let's get into this NFL draft talk, because I know y'all Saints fans out there want to hear about the draft. And, of course, y'all fantasy players out there want to know which of these rookies are going to really be relevant. Which of these guys can I trust as far as the draft? So let's bring on our special guest here to help us break it down. He's a film junkie. We had him on last year to help break down the draft, and gonna bring him back here. He's now working for Philly, but he's still on our team. Mr. Devin Jackson. How's it going, man?
Hey man, how you doing? Glad to be on the show once again, and looking forward to talk some NFL draft, man.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Have you back. I know you made a special Bayou Bets appearance a couple months ago to break down the Super Bowl, and man, that was that was a hell of a game, man. I don't think we've been on a show since then, but man, that was Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Couldn't ask for much better than that.
Yeah, they lived up to the billing, and it was such a fun game to watch back and forth. And honestly, as someone that wasn't really too invested necessarily in the outcome of the game, but just watching the game and seeing the two best teams in NFL go at it, and uh, coming in, we were expecting it maybe to be a defensive battle, but quarterbacks took over in the fourth quarter, and it was a battle for the ages. And now they're two of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL now. So goes to show you, just how the season can make a difference for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, definitely. That's something we could have put on the headlines. Actually, Jalen Hurts just got paid. I'm glad you brought that up, Devin, because Jalen Hurts getting paid. That's huge as far as setting the tone for what the market could look like here moving forward with guys like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and of course Lamar Jackson, all looking to get paid. Hurts getting a pretty hefty deal, but not all fully guaranteed though. So Lamar might have to decrease his asking price a little bit there. But before we get in, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, for sure. Obviously, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert have deals that they'll be looking to get extended to coming up. So it'll be interesting to see just what happens for the next quarterback deal. Obviously, what ends up with Lamar Jackson, but with Herbert and Burrow, those deals are coming up soon for their teams, and wonder what those numbers could look like for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Definitely going to get paid, I would think, because he'd be an idiot to let those guys leave or have them be disgruntled. But let's get into the next wave of QBs here. We're going to start with the quarterback position, breaking down the fantasy relevant spots: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So this quarterback class, man, Bryce Young at the top. Odds are saying he's not a heavy favorite to go first there to the Panthers. And to me, you can't really argue with it. Breaking down the film, he checks all the boxes, I feel like. The only blemish appears to be his size. But I don't know about you, Devin, but to me, Bryce Young is well on his way to going first overall. And I guess the question would be, do you feel is he worth that? Is he truly the top prospect?
Yeah, I don't think necessarily he's not my top prospect. I think Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are both better, just pure prospects to me. But quarterback's the most important position in football, and I think for Young, he's been someone we've been weighing on the last couple years to be draft eligible. And although Alabama didn't win the national championship and weren't in the college football playoff, it wasn't because of Bryce Young. He kept them in every game that they played in, even the losses to Tennessee and LSU. He was the reason that they were even in the game. His ability to create out of structure and, really just make, amazing plays out of nothing. I know he gets knocked for like his height. Obviously, he's going to be an outlier in terms of weight. He came in the combine at 200 pounds, but we all know he's playing at like 185, 190, which is very below average for a quarterback. But the accuracy he throws with, his ability to feel the pressure around him and still step up in the pocket and make throws, I think makes him a top prospect in this class. And can't argue with Carolina, going with him. I think he's going to be able to. I don't think he's going to be like a star from day one, but I think his ability to make plays on the move and outside of the pocket, I think are going to be the difference maker for his career over the next 3-4 years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because he definitely showed those flashes on film of being able to do it all. It's just with his size, it's just the question of can he hold up over the full season. So I guess, do you think, though, before we get to the rest of the class, do you think Young is a guy that, I mean, taking him first overall, probably going to start week one. Do you see him, though, being able to, like, put up pretty big numbers right away, kind of like the way Justin Herbert did, or do you see it being more of a slow, gradual process like with Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a slow, gradual process just because like he's, he can read defenses quickly, he can make plays outside of the pocket, but I think he's gonna have to get used to throwing in NFL pockets where like, he was able to have the space to throw, those short passes at the line of scrimmage. Not everyone around him is bigger. Is he going to be able to consistently get the ball over the line of scrimmage? Is he going to have a lot of tip passes early on? And how quickly will they kind of unleash him? Oh, sorry about that. But how
All
quickly will
good.
they be able to unleash him in terms of are is he going to be able to have the NFL playbook down already? Is he Are they going to be comfortable letting him drop back in third and long situations? Carolina's been building up their offensive line the last couple years, and even now they have a pretty good offensive line. But how comfortable will they be? And really, how comfortable will he be with inside that offense? Obviously, Frank Reich coming in too, I think kind of impacts how they may look offensively. Will they go back to more of a running dominant style of offense and a lot getting the running back in the building? They have Miles Sanders. How you doing, Jerry? But I think for him it's going to be a gradual process because I don't think they're going to expose him to throwing the ball 30, 40 times right off the bat. So
For sure. So, yeah, I might want to temper the fantasy expectations for Bryce Young. But, yeah, as far as the reality perspective, he's going to be the Panthers quarterback for years to come, and someone that Saints fans probably aren't going to like too much because he's going to be slicing and dicing out there. But as far as the rest of the guys, Gabe had a question for you, Devin, about some of the guys after.
Oh, there goes Spencer. Anyways, Devin, my question to you is after Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, who do you look at and view as your quarterback three? There's been a lot of talk about Anthony Richardson's athleticism. There's Will Levis. There's Hendon Hooker coming off an ACL injury. So who is your guy that you're looking at?
yeah, QB3 for me is Anthony Richardson, and I think it's really the skill set he brings to the table that kind of separates him to me from a guy like Will Levis or even Hendon Hooker. We know that Richardson wasn't the most accurate quarterback in college. That's the first thing people will point to. But it wasn't all on him. There was quite a few missed assignments and dropped passes from his wide receivers. And he just played with average to below average talent. Receivers weren't getting separation for him, and ended up him pressing a little bit, especially in the games that he struggled. But the running ability, for one, I think he's going to be a top 3 to 4 runner from at the quarterback position as a rookie. And I think that kind of gives you value fantasy wise, being able to rack up the points as a runner, but also I think it's going to aid him in his development because teams are going to try and stop him, and it's going to leave chances that they're able to build off of some of the RPO game that he ran in college and what he's able to do off of play action as well with his running threat ability. So I think it's going to allow him to, I won't say have an easier transition, but it's going to allow him to be effective early on if he is thrown into the mix as a rookie. I don't expect him to be thrown into mix, and frankly, any quarterback after Stroud and Young, I don't think will play in year one of their rookie season or shouldn't play. But of the three, you have to like Richardson's ability to run the football, and he's a guy that goes through progressions and understands what the defenses are throwing at him. So I think he's going to pick up the game a lot quicker than people expect him to, versus like a Hendon Hooker who played in an offense that doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL game, just the way that they attack defenses. And then Will Levis, he just isn't seeing the field as cleanly. So I would say Richardson is my QB3 right now.
Cool. Appreciate Gabe for asking that there. And so, yeah, Devin, I put Richardson there. I highlighted him because to me, I know he said he probably isn't going to get to start in year one, but I feel like if he does, man, he's just oozing with upside because of just the running ability there. We know how these running quarterbacks can be stars in fantasy football. Look at Justin Fields last year. Yeah, the Bears as a team were terrible, but for fantasy, Justin Fields, when he played, was a top 5 quarterback. So to me, if Richardson gets in there, like he's gonna eat and eat well.
Yeah, ideally he'd be almost kind of like how the Ravens introduced Lamar Jackson into the offense, where they put in packages for him, and allowed him to use his running ability to kind of give the defense a different look. So ideally, you would start to get him on the field and get him some reps in year one. But I wouldn't expect him to start from year one. But if you're a team that isn't looking to make the playoffs immediately, I think I could see that happening. But I think just for his development wise and confidence wise, you want the rookie quarterback to go in when he's ready, and has a handle on the NFL playbook. And I think that that'll be the best case scenario for him. But if he does play, I think he's going to be a tremendous value fantasy wise as a running quarterback.
For sure. And then one more for you about Stroud before we move on to running backs, because I feel like CJ Stroud's the name. I like CJ Stroud. I think he's got a nice arm, a nice skill set. Didn't have a whole lot of weaknesses, but it seems like his stock's kind of falling, though. I feel like teams are they must not see him being the athlete of Richardson or the passer of Young, where he's kind of like just kind of stuck in that range where, yeah, he's solid, but just doesn't seem to really wow teams. Are you thinking that he could see a slide on draft night because of those concerns, or do you think that it's getting overblown and that he'll still go in the top 2?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Surely, this is gamesmanship time for NFL teams. They like to throw out a lot of rumors that may not always be true, to see, kind of what the response is, and kind of check the temperature of the room, so to speak. So I think Stroud could fall outside the top 2, but I don't see him falling past like 4 or 5. I think if the 3 teams ahead of the Indianapolis Colts, depending on if the Cardinals trade back out of 3, I don't see CJ Stroud getting past 4 at this point. I think the Colts, if he's there, they're going to take him. And I think they're going to, I mean, if he falls to 4 of the Colts, that would be, I would think, the teams either had a chance to pick Stroud before them, or even after. I think may end up regretting it, because like he's going to be a really solid quarterback at NFL level. I don't think he's going to be like top 3, 4 upper echelon, but I mean, you can live with a top 10 to 15 quarterback, and someone that's accurate, that's going to put the ball in your playmakers' hands, and play winning football. So I think Stroud is definitely getting a little bit overvalued, but I do think it's a little overblown. I think he's still going to be one of the 3 or 4 players off the board early in that first round.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then Levis up there as well. Probably more of a project like Richardson, to where might not be real fantasy relevant right away, but at least Richardson has the rushing, where that's why I'm pretty high on him there. And then Hendon Hooker, he could be a dynasty play, but for those in season-long leagues, probably won't see the field at all coming off a torn ACL. So that's the top of the quarterback class there. I got a few more names after that. I mean, look at Brock Purdy last year. I mean, you never know who might emerge, but I would think those are the names to watch for the signal callers. But let's move on to the running back position, because I know as fantasy football enthusiasts love to talk running backs, always trying to figure out who's going to be the new bell cow, if any. It just seems that the bell cow running back is a dying breed, unfortunately. Derrick Henry's don't grow on trees anymore. Like, not to say they ever really grew on trees, but they had a lot more workhorses, or nowadays the workhorse running back are few and far between, but we might have one this year in Bijan Robinson. Been getting compared by a lot of scouts to LT LaDainian Tomlinson, and that's a rich comparison, because, man, growing up, LT, he was the cream of the crop. He was the 101 in fantasy when I was little. It was no doubt LT. He's run to the board. If you get first pick, you know who you get. So Bijan, Devin, does he check the boxes? Do you think he's going to live up to the hype as a generational running back prospect?
I think it depends on what expectations you set for him, right? I think if you're expecting him to be an LT level, AP level of running back, I think that may be a little too high, because I think the landing spot is going to be the biggest question mark for him. So we
Right.
know NFL offenses aren't featuring running backs at the same rate that we used to see. A lot of teams are going by committee, or they're doing a 2 to 3 running back system. So I think it depends on if you plan on using him as a feature back or not. And I think the good thing about him is that he has reception ability. He can run routes as well out of the slot. Texas use him all over the field. So I think the expectation is that he's going to be a really good player early on. I think he will. Everything he does, it translates a big ability to make people miss an open field, ability to create his own lanes, next level vision, contact balance, everything you want in a modern running back, plus the receiving upside. So I think it depends on what you're putting expectations you put him as a quote unquote generational back. Um, it's a tough one because the NFL just isn't using the running backs the same way, and
Right.
he's a guy that you don't want to put tread on his tires too early in his career because he has special ability, but also you want him there for the long term and even past the first contract because that's really the key there. So I think Bijan can live up to expectations that people are having of him, but if you're expecting him to be a generational type running back in the way that the NFL uses running backs right now, I think you could be just a little bit misguided in terms of how I guess good he can be compared to some of the greats.
Right. Yeah, it's just a different game, you know. So as far as fantasy though, I mean, shoot, if he's putting up Christian McCaffrey type numbers as far as catching all kind of passes, it's like, yeah, he might not have quite the rushing numbers that LT did, but if he's putting up the same amount of like total yards rushing and receiving, we're good with that too. We don't necessarily need him running for 2,000 yards. If he's running for 1,500 and going for like 1,000 receiving, shoot, that's as much or more yards from scrimmage as someone that's running for 2,000 and not catching many passes. It's more, honestly. So yeah, for fantasy, we love that the way this game's changing, that it's guys like Austin Eckler, CMC that are taking over, and it's like by them being more involved as receivers, they don't have quite as much tread on the tires as far as early down running. So I feel like that's plays into the hands of Bijan as well as Jahmyr Gibbs and Tajay Spears out of Tulane. And a lot of people down here in NOLA know and love Tajay, being that he carried the green wave on his back, led him to the Cotton Bowl win. So to me, Devin, I feel like Gibbs and Spears, their skill sets translate very well because they can catch passes as well. Do you see these guys being able to replicate that success at the NFL level?
Yeah, I think Gibbs for sure. Because I think with his game is that he's not a high volume type of runner. He's a guy, and I compared him to Alvin Kamara like earlier in the season, and I kind of stick by it. I don't think they're necessarily in terms of the way they run or the way they're built are the same, but I think in terms of usage, like he's going to get like 10 to 15 carries a game. You're also going to throw him 5 to 7 times out of the backfield because just like Bijan, he has a receiving ability. So I think he's going to bring value as a receiving running back, especially early in his career. I think you're going to be able to throw him out there and let him run routes one on one with linebackers and safeties, and he's going to get open. But I don't expect him to be a high volume runner. Same thing with Tajay Spears. He's going to be kind of that change of pace runner where he may not be the starting running back or the top running back, but you go to him as a second or third guy, and he's able to gash defenses with his speed and athleticism and elusiveness, plus what he can do out of the backfield on screens and swing passes and being creative and creating yards after contact. So I can see Spears and Gibbs being third down running backs earlier in their careers, where they're behind a running back that's not necessarily built to be a receiver, but is serviceable. But they can come in and kind of bring that change of pace feel, and kind of like what the Saints did with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. I think those guys can kind of fill that Kamara role where they weren't starters, but when they got hot, that you keep giving them the ball, keep getting finding ways to get them the ball creatively, and then kind of go from there. So I kind of see them in that same bucket where you're not asking them to carry the ball 20, 25 times a game, but 20 total touches and allowing them to attack defenses from a myriad of places on the field.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and that's the kind of touches we want for fantasy. You know, those receptions, especially those in PPR leagues. So it sounds like Gibbs and Spears, well on their way to success. Hopefully, the landing spots end up good, which we'll definitely have a few shows about that as far as how the rookies where they land and how that that changes everything, the landing spots. But before we move on to receivers, Devin, I'd like to ask you about because most people know about these big three, but you also got Zach Charbonnet from UCLA, Devon Achane from Texas A&M, as well as a lot of other guys that are intriguing, like a Tank Bigsby from Auburn, different ones. Who out of the ones outside of Bijan, Gibbs, and Spears do you feel could be an immediate impact guy at the NFL level?
Well, I think a guy that could have a Dameon Pierce-like impact as a rookie is Roshan Johnson from Texas, Bijan's teammate. I think with Roshan, he also has the skill set of a full three down back. But obviously, you're backing up one of the best running backs in the country, and one of the best running backs we've seen probably since Saquon Barkley. So I think with Roshan, he is a little bit overlooked because of being behind Bijan, but just like Bijan, he has receiving ability, a powerful runner that can run through arm tackles, can create explosive runs. He's not as dynamic of a home run hitter as Bijan is, but I think he's a really nice 20, 25 yard, gashing you with runs type of runner. He was down at the Senior Bowl and got to see him there. He only practiced one day, but he was clearly one of the best, if not the best players on the field. And that just shows you, being the second or third running back on a college team, you still can end up being a big time star. So I think he could have immediate impact as a rookie, a good pass protector too, which I think will get him on the field. But I could see him having a Dameon Pierce like impact at the NFL level of a guy that may go third or fourth round.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like the Georgia running backs, like that Nick Chubb, Sony Michelle, and last year James Cook, Zamir White. These two back systems. There can have two running backs from the same college in the same draft class that pan out. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on the other Texas back there. So let's move on to receivers. We've got some names here that are intriguing, led off by Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, teammates with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So to start off, Devin, do you see JSN having that immediate impact like his Buckeye teammates?
Yeah, I think he's one of the few receivers in this particular draft class that understands spacing, understands how to get open, and where to exploit defenses at. I think a lot of the other guys that you have named there, like Quentin Johnston, like Isaiah Flowers, Jalen Hyatt, they're like top end speed players that win vertically and know how to win vertically. But in terms of some of the short intermediate routes, I think they're not as nuanced as Smith and Jigba, and I think that will allow him to have immediate impact compared to some of these other receivers because he had to do it with two NFL receivers, in his only season, really playing at Ohio State, at a high number of snaps. He's playing alongside Olave and Wilson and still making plays and still having some of the best numbers of the three. And I think that just shows you the way he understands how to get open, how to manipulate defenses. And even though he's not a blazer, he's not a top end speed type player. We've seen guys like him, and a lot of people have compared him to Amon-Ra St. Brown and players of that ilk. And I think he fits that where, okay, you're probably not going to get a true outside receiver, but a guy that you can move around a little bit. And he's going to be able to exploit a variety of ways. So I think he can have a really nice impact as a more of a volume guy versus a numbers or touchdowns or deep receiver type of player. So I think he will be a nice, probably a flex option as a rookie versus having him as a true wide receiver one, wide receiver two for your fantasy team. Just because I think it's going to take him a little bit to get going and allowing offenses to really see his full skill set. But I think he's a nice flex option if you're kind of in a pinch and need a guy that can get you some points, but isn't going to necessarily dominate. I think fantasy in year one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he'd be a good, safe floor kind of guy. And then another one that kind of I feel like is similar to that is Jordan Addison. A guy that when he was with Pitt was a volume guy with Kenny Pickett last year. Didn't do quite as well statistically with Caleb Williams, but I mean, at USC, they spread the ball to like 4 or 5 different guys. So we're like Johnson, Flowers, Hyatt, you mentioned them, Devin. They've all seem like they've got potential, but kind of more to speed guys where they might kind of fluctuate. So Addison, do you feel Addison is another guy kind of like Smith and Jigba that could might not be as flashy, but could have an impact right away because of the receptions, just getting those safe receptions?
Yeah, and I know, like, with guys being impactful from the slot, it seems like there's kind of a toss up if they could translate. But I think with Addison, like Smith and Jigba, he understands kind of spacing. I think Addison is one of, if not the best route runner in this class in terms of getting open, beating press coverage, and finding space and making space. I don't think he's as dynamic of a yak player, yards after catch type player as some of the other guys that are listed here, but I think he just kind of is a move the chains type of player early in his career. On like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, he's going to find a way to get open, get to the sticks, and get you first down. So I think early in his career, he's going to be that. And he has some ability to win vertically as well, but I don't think that's his, uh, you know, true calling in a game. And I think you can play him on the outside a little bit as well. He's not going to be too much of a slot only type player, but I think you got to get creative too. Just like with Smith and Jigba, a lot of these receivers, you got to get creative with how they get the ball and getting the ball quickly. So to me, he's another probably flex option for fantasy. I don't think really any of these guys are going to be, a guy that you draft and expect to play in the first couple weeks and get big results from them fantasy wise. But I think there's some value in them down the road once you start to see them produce a little bit and get their numbers called a little bit more. I think you won't see guys like Olave and Wilson in this class, but I think there's some value, like the midpoint towards the later ends of the season.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, not every class is going to be a big hit like last year's was, but we all know a lot of times in these classes, you can find guys late as well, guys that aren't really being talked about. So, any guys not on this list that stand out to you, Devin?
Yeah, so I think Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss is a guy that could get some early playing time at wide receiver. Played a little bit of everything at Ole Miss, big slot, played on the outside, and I think that ability to play all around in Ole Miss's offense, I think is going to help him at the NFL level. Um, I don't know if he's a starter immediately per se, but I think he can compete for snaps for a wide receiver 3 or even a 2 and really start to gain confidence from that. But has the speed to take the top off the defense, but also has the size and body to catch over the middle of the field and can be kind of that chain mover as well. So he is someone that I will keep an eye on just to see where his landing spot is because I think there's an opportunity for him to play earlier in his career than people might expect. So he's someone that I will keep in mind. And then another name as well as Tyler Scott from Cincinnati, a true speed guy. I think he ran 4.3 at the combine. Has the ability to separate at all 3 levels. Played at Cincinnati, so not a lot of people are paying attention to what he was doing. But if an offense gets him in the building, I think he's someone that he might be a little bit more of a boom or bust every week in fantasy, but he'll get you probably a 60, 70-yard touchdown every couple weeks just because of the speed he has and ability to get behind the defense. So those are 2 guys that I would keep an eye on that could be impactful early as a rookie, but I don't think either of them are going to, like break out in a big way or have 1,000 yards. I can see them having 400 or 500 yards and a couple of touchdowns alongside their names as a rookie.
For sure. But we're running a little short on time here. But before we sign off, let's get to tight ends. Got a couple tight end questions for you. I'll start off with the top 2, the consensus top 2, Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer. I'm on the Kincaid train personally. I feel like I watch his tape. He looks the part. He kind of reminded me of Kelsey or Kittle, the way he could generate yards after the catch. Where Mayer, I mean, he looks solid, but he probably looks more just like more of like a possession kind of guy, But what are your thoughts, Devin? Who do you feel is the overall tight end 1 of this class?
I think everything considered, I will go Michael Mayer because I think Dalton Kincaid is a little bit more of a guy that is going to be a receiving tight end. He's not going to offer you much as a true tight end, but you can move him
Mhm.
around. He can win from the outside, from slot, as a true tight end position. And just everything he does is savvy and just next level in terms of creating separation, winning contested catch situations. I think Mayer is going to surprise people with his ability to create after the catch. I know he seems more of a possession receiver, but he has, and people have compared him like Gronkowski, but I think he has a little bit of Gronkowski in him after the catch where he like rumbles and breaks two or three tackles and can create 20, 25-yard gains that way. It's not a sustainable way of playing, but I think he's not going to be that, explosive tight end that we've seen in NFL. But I think Mayer for me is one because he's going to be able to block immediately as a tight end. He's going to be a big red zone threat too. I think he's going to be able to box out defenders, and you can kind of use him like Jason Witten was with the Cowboys for over the years, where you allow him to work the middle of the field and really exploit some mismatches. But Kincaid to me, I think is going to be the better fantasy option because they're going to involve him immediately as a rookie. Whereas you see like tight ends kind of get eased in. I can see him taking on more of a heavier workload. They're trying to get him ways to get him the ball in a short area and kind of scheming up ways to get him the ball. So I can see him being the more bigger fantasy option, but I can see Mayer, really developing into an upper echelon tight end, just what he's able to do in the trenches and before and after the catch.
Right. Yeah, the blocking, I sometimes get blinded, just watching the receiving tape, kind of forget about the blocking. But yeah, that's still a big part of the tight end position. So overall, Mayer might be a little better, but for fantasy, probably gonna lean Kincaid. But we've got a couple of big old boys here to talk about: Darnell Washington and Luke Musgrave, both physical specimens there, but kind of unpolished prospects though, as far as like they didn't put up a whole lot of receiving numbers in college. Obviously, have a lot of upside due to their size. So, which of these two do you feel has the most upside?
I think the most upside will probably be Darnell Washington slightly for me. I like Luke Musgrave. I think he's going to be a nice vertical threat tight end, someone that can stretch the seams. I think he's more of a Darren Waller type of tight end where you use him to threaten defenses. Evan Ingram as well is another one that comes to mind. That's how you're going to use Luke Musgrave. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be a ton in the trenches, but is serviceable there. Washington to me is such a ball of clay because like he blocks like an offensive lineman, has the size of kind of a creative player tight end, and he's an explosive athlete. He's not someone that's going to get off the ball and be. He's more of a build to speed guy. He's not someone that's just going to flash down the middle of the field. And I think him kind of learning how to continue to exploit the open zones and zone coverage over the middle of the field, but I think he can, at least in year one, be a big, big red zone tight end option. Use him on slants, use him to throw the fade ball, really allow him to play kind of that jump ball mentality that the Saints obviously did with Jimmy Graham and some of those other bigger tight ends like that you can just win with over the top. So I think with Washington, you're going to get a player that 3-4 years down the line, you're going to see kind of the potential that he could be one of the top upper echelon tight ends in the league, but I think it's going to take him some time to develop and kind of polish his route tree. I think Musgrave is further along in terms of route running and what he's able to do as a receiver. He just didn't have the games played. He only played in 2 games in 2022. Really didn't come on until late 2021. So the experience part for Musgrave is going to make him a little bit more of a learning curve. But Washington played so much, and some of that receiving, lack of receiving was because he's playing with a 2024 first round tight end and Brock Bowers. So I think that kind of played a part in it. They want him to block and protect the quarterback a little bit more, but I think when you fully unleash him, you're going to get a guy that really could be a monster at the tight end position in a couple years, assuming he stays healthy and continues to develop.
Most definitely. Yeah, really appreciate all that analysis there from Devin. Hope y'all are tuned into that, taking notes for y'all the dynasty startup drafts and rookie drafts and just even redraft, because I mean these rookies are going to be very relevant. So before I let you go, man, one last question for you: who do you think the Saints select at 29th overall?
Oh, this is a tough one. But I'm gonna go with Mozzie Smith from Michigan. I know he's been someone that's been linked to the Saints before, but I see him as a early down run stuffer that can really develop as a pass rusher, has a skill set to. And the Saints just need someone big in the middle that can stop the run. And I think Smith can provide that for the Saints. I'm also thinking about Adetomiwa Debawore from Northwestern. He's another popular pick to the Saints, but I would probably lean Mozzie Smith from Michigan. And I saw Mr. White's comment about Darnell Washington. I would agree. I don't think he's the same caliber player necessarily as a Jimmy Graham was, but I'm just thinking more so of the usage and what he will be down the line versus what he is now. But I think if you're looking for a Jimmy Graham type receiver, in this class, I would say probably, I think in terms of like physicality and all that, I would say probably, I think Mayer probably fits that a little bit more in that mentality. But I think down the line, Darnell Washington is going to be a really good pro.
For sure, yeah. Mr. White said agreed. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I think Washington will be pretty solid. Going to be interesting to see all those upside kind of guys. It's interesting to see if they can hit their ceiling. Another one that comes to mind, Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion. He's a big, tall tight end. Some of them hit like Jimmy Graham. Others missed, though, because they didn't really do much in college. But it'll be interesting, Devin. Going to have you back on, man. It was good chopping it up with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm here until next week when I'll be at the draft. So definitely we'll look forward to talking more draft and crazy that we're a little less than a week for wrapping up. So I'll definitely come on and talk some more NFL draft with you for sure.
Cool. Yeah, next week we might do a mock draft. Well, it's still to be determined, but if we do, I'll extend the invite, man.
For sure, man.
All right. Appreciate it. Devin Jackson, y'all, always bringing the info. And, man, he gave so much info to where we barely got time for our rants. But then you say, Gabe, you'll probably save yours for next week, huh?
Yeah, I can save mine for next week. I'm all good. My rant's been on my mind for a few months, so can wait a week longer.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I guess before I get to mine, man, 'cause I know, we were chopping up with Devin there. Any you keep up close with MLB, any little fantasy baseball tidbits you'd like to throw in?
Kind of put me on the spot there.
I can, if you need some time, I can do my rant and get that out the way.
No, go ahead and do your rant. We'll touch on fantasy baseball at a later time. If you have any fantasy baseball questions, feel free to tweet at me. My handle's right there below my name.
Cool. But all right, here we go. I'm just gonna say it. I'm done with KD, man. I've been a KD hater for a while now, and it's like, and he just hadn't really proven me wrong, I mean, in the game one, he put up points, but Kawhi Leonard outdid him there, the Clippers Sun series, to where it's like he's on a new team, Kevin Durant is, to where you just stop paying up for him in DFS. He's still priced up there with freaking Jason Tatum and all LeBron, all the other top small forwards. I mean, he's just not quite there right now. Like he's on a new team. He's still learning to get in the groove there with Phoenix, and probably not gonna be a popular take, but I'm tired of it. As far as if he was cheaper, I'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, because then he's still KD, he's still putting up 20 something a game. But as far as paying for him to be an elite anchor on a DFS squad, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. You're paying for the name, because with Devin Booker there, I mean, KD is not gonna get the amount of volume required to be that guy that you're having to pay over 9,000 or whatever it is. So just want to put that out there. I just see his name up there, and I'm just like, KD is, I mean, he's still got it, but he's no longer like He's transitioning. He's on the new team. Like he's just it's not the same KD as with the Thunder or with the Warriors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with someone that expensive, you're going to need some guarantees, and Kevin Durant just doesn't bring that.
Yeah, which I mean, he does some nights, but not consistently enough anymore to me. Like that's the thing where like I know Kawhi Leonard, he's getting a little older too, but I feel like now that it's playoff time and with Paul George, with Paul George injured right now, I feel like he's in better position to be a DFS anchor as opposed to KD who's having to share with Booker as far as being the lead scorer. So but yeah, that's going to wrap it up here. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. It was a fun episode. Thanks to Devin for coming on. Thanks to Gabe for rocking with us like he does each and every week. And we'll be back at y'all next week with even more draft talk. Draft will only be a couple days away at that point. So until then, this has been Spencer the Guru Urquhart with the Fantasy Roundup. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace.